So a few months ago, I found out I became a chartered accountant here in the UK, and I thought it would be fun to film a video basically going through each exam from easiest to most difficult, as I did end up sitting all 15 of them without any exemptions. We'll just dive right in, starting at number 15. I've got my trusty list here. So number 15, I put business technology and finance. Not much to be said on this exam, to be perfectly honest. I found it fairly straightforward and I ended up scoring 72 on this exam, so pretty good score. And this is obviously one of the certificate level exams, not much to it. It was very sort of high level management, businessy kind of stuff that you get in like a business studies degree or business studies at A level. I don't think many people would really argue with that position for that exam. So there we go, number 15. At number 14, I put assurance and I scored 70% in that exam. Assurance, again, I think being a certificate level exam, it was multiple choice, so it wasn't too bad when it came to the actual content. Being honest, it was about 3 years ago since I sat this exam. I don't remember too much of it, but I don't remember it being too challenging, to be honest. That's why I've given it number 14. Number 13, I put law, and I scored 58% in law, which is quite near to the 55% you needed to pass. The reason for that one, and this, funny enough, is actually my lowest scoring exam out of them all. I think the reason I scored so low is because it was the hottest day of the year when I sat this one back in 2022. And I just remember being in my flat and it was so hot. Like I was sat there just drinking water, sweating. My old flat was just like an absolute furnace. So being in there trying to sit that exam in the morning was just hell, to be perfectly honest. I definitely wasn't in the right frame of mind to sit an exam, but hey, just about scraped to pass. Law was quite a funny one because it didn't really tie into any other exams after sitting it, so very much by itself there. But again, the content wasn't too bad. Number 12, I put principles of tax and I scored 78%. Principles of tax, again, it's a certificate level exam. One of the hardest certificates, I'd say, just because tax is a fairly complex area because I didn't really work in tax as part of my job. Also, there's quite a lot to learn when it comes to tax, a lot of different rules, a lot of different rates, and it always seems to be changing. So it was a little bit more challenging than the others, I'd say, and a bit more to learn when it came to the numbers and the rates and that kind of thing. But overall, not too bad. Number 11, I put accounting, where I scored 71%. Now, the reason I found this one so hard, and I think people will genuinely agree with me on this, is because it's the first one most people tend to sit as part of the ACA. When you are just sitting this exam after being, after only working for a few weeks or a month or whatever, your knowledge is still not amazing when it comes to accounting, particularly if you didn't do accounting at uni or A level. It was quite challenging in that sense because you had to kind of learn accounts, you had to learn how it all worked really from the ground up. And I think that's why it was probably one of the more difficult exams there, because you're sitting it first. It's the first exam, you don't really know what to expect. So that's why I put it at number 11. Not too challenging, but still one of the harder certificate exams, I'd say. At number 10, I put audit and assurance, where I scored 61%. The first professional level exam I sat, and the first one in this order. I sat it about a month after doing the assurance paper, so I didn't find it too bad, as I think I timed it very well there. There was a lot of crossover from the assurance into the audit and assurance professional level. I think the reason this one might stump a few people out is because it is the first one where you are actually having to sit down, work through answers, write an answer down, and not just clicking a checkbox. But in terms of professional and advanced exams, I don't remember it being too challenging. Definitely one of the ones I think are lighter when it comes to the content and how much you actually need to study and prepare. At number 9, I put business strategy and technology, where I scored 63%. A lot of people would say this one is, again, fairly straightforward, a bit like audit and assurance. At least that's from my experience and from speaking to other people too. It's generally one of the lighter professional level exams and quite a difficult one to study for. So when I sat this in 2023, I believe it was very Excel heavy, and I believe it still is to that day. You need to learn a lot of formulas, a lot of ratio analysis, variance analysis, that kind of thing. So that was fairly challenging. But when compared to some of the other professional exams, I didn't think it was too bad. So that's why I put it at number 9. At number 8, I put management information, where I scored 67%. So management information was a very weird exam, to be perfectly honest. And funnily enough, I've put it above some of the professional level exams, as you've just seen. I think management information is quite tricky in the sense that there's a lot of variances and unit economical stuff to get your head around and learn. It's not overly challenging, but it can stump people out quite easily. And it's definitely the hardest certificate level exam in my opinion. Number 7, I put case study, where I scored 68%. Again, this is an advanced level exam, so maybe you're surprised to hear it's at number 7. Case study is very different to all the other exams because you don't really need to study too much. You just need to learn your case inside and out and really prepare for it. I do think the people that pass case study are the ones who best prepare for it and are the ones who read the case over, analyze everything, and come in with a very good set of notes. So that's what I'd recommend doing for case study. 6, I put financial management, where I scored 63%. Financial management I found fairly difficult, but again, a little bit more tame than the other professional level exams. The reason why it can be quite difficult is because there's a lot of new content that you didn't really cover at certificate level for FM. But I did find that it was quite consistent year on year in terms of what you had to learn, particularly around hedging and FX and stuff like that. It wasn't too different to prior year past papers, so it was quite good and easy to prepare for. At number 5, I put financial accounting and reporting, IFRS, where I scored 98%. Didn't find this one too bad, as you can probably see. I don't really know how I got that, to be perfectly honest. I do a lot of accounts as part of my job, so possibly there I didn't find it too challenging. But it was, again, very structured and quite predictable. It's kind of follows a similar pattern each year with FAR in terms of the cash flow, in terms of the consolidation, in terms of the balance sheet and P&L. So once you kind of get your head around some and can practice, it isn't too bad to actually prepare for. And there's not too many surprises with FAR. So that's why I put it at number 5. Number 4, I put strategic business management, where I scored 71%. Again, another advanced level exam, which was fairly difficult, but compared to corporate reporting and some of the tax professionals, I didn't find it too bad. This one built a lot on business strategy and technology at the professional level. There was a lot of crossovers in terms of the Excel formulas and that kind of stuff to learn. But again, I found it a doable exam in terms of what you had to actually do. It was pretty much a case of just applying business information to the questions and making sure you pretty much use common sense when answering the questions. That's kind of how I saw that exam. Not too bad, but again, don't underestimate it. It's still quite a challenging exam. And I remember coming out of that exam thinking I'd failed it. So again, as I said, don't underestimate it. Number 3, I put tax compliance, where I scored 79%. Tax compliance was a pretty challenging exam. It's a lot harder than principles of tax and really builds on that solid foundation you got at principles of tax. So if you did get an exemption there, I'd recommend really studying hard for this one because it is quite challenging in terms of what you need to remember, and all the sort of formulas and logistics when it comes to tax is quite challenging. So tax compliance is definitely the more numbers heavy one out of the 2 tax exams at the professional stage. But I didn't find it as bad as BPT, although a lot of people would say tax compliance is probably harder. So yeah, make your mind up there. Number 2, I put business planning taxation. So I scored 78% in this exam. This was a pretty challenging exam from what I remember. There was a lot to get your head around, a lot to prepare for. So many rules, so many different things that could have came up. And I really think that's why it is quite a challenging exam. So do not underestimate this one. If you are going to sit it, make sure you study hard and prepare for this one because it is pretty brutal. And number 1, what I think is the most difficult of all the 15 ACA exams is corporate reporting. And I scored 66% on this one. So corporate reporting is a beast of an exam. There's so much that can come up. And there's a lot of complex topics too, particularly around groups and consolidations and subsidiaries and that kind of stuff. There's a lot of nuance and a lot of new content to learn, as well as a lot of stuff from FAR, but just a lot harder. And to be honest, it's just an exam that you really need to prepare for and really put your head down for, because there's just so much that can come up. You know, the textbook I got for that one was very thick, and it just wasn't an easy exam, wasn't a fun one, but the feeling of passing that was a good one. So make sure you really prepare and study hard for that one. But there we have it. That was my review of the 15 ACA exams. I hope that was helpful. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comment section below, and I'll see you in the next video.